Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the Fiscal Committee meeting to order. We could. Okay, on the agenda, our first thing is acceptance of minutes. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Senator D'Alessandro. Second by Representative Edwards. Are there any corrections, comments, changes? Seeing none, could I have a show of hands? Oh, okay. Oh, that's beside the point. Yes, 8-1. Okay, is there anyone that is interested in taking FIS 22-203 off the table? Seeing none, we will proceed now to the consent calendar. If I'm not mistaken, Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. Take off the table, I'm sorry, thank you, Senator Daniels. FIS 22023. At this time, I have the following items to be taken off the table. The first one, under tab 4, FIS 22223. Under tab 5, FIS 22208. FIS 22224. FIS 2236. Yes, tab 7, excuse me. Tab 7. Yeah. FIS 22237. FIS 22238. And FIS 2240. Are there any other items to come off? Yes, Senator Rosenbaum.
Thank you. I think I had been the person who wanted to take 208 off the table. But based on the department's responses to the questions, I don't feel the need to do that anymore. So if it was just me, I'm happy to leave it on consent.
Okay. Is there anyone that objects to leaving FIS 22208 on the consent calendar? Seeing none, it will be on the consent calendar.
Thank you.
Thank you. Could I have a motion, please, to accept all of the other items on the consent
So
calendar?
moved.
Oh. They're not on the consent calendar.
Good.
Mhm. Okay. Could I have a motion to approve all of the other items on the consent calendar?
So moved.
Senator Rosenwald,
Second.
Senator D'Alessandro. Yeah, I think we better.
Okay. Consent calendar. Representative Edwards.
Yes.
Representative Amy votes yes. Representative Erf.
Yes.
Representative Leishman.
Yes.
Senator Daniels.
Yes.
Senator Morse. Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
Senator D'Alessandro.
Yes.
Representative Umberger.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is 9-0.
Thank you very much. 9-0. So we'll move to FIS 22223 under tab 4. And that is the Department of Education.
Good morning. For the record, Frank Edelblue, Commissioner of Education.
Tammy Valancourt, CFO for Education.
Welcome on this beautiful Friday morning. I do want to say, excuse me just a second, but before everybody walks out the door, I would like to say that the explanations that were sent in this time were much better than what they have been in the past. And I really want to thank the commissioners and the folks that are actually preparing those explanations for the work that they have been doing over the last 6 months to improve the explanations. So, tab 4, FIS 22223. Is there someone that has a question on this? Senator D'Alessandro?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Nice to see you, Commissioner. Commissioner, I love this one. $580,000 for better use. What is better use? I mean, that's a rather expansive term, better use.
I think that's a fair criticism.
I could use $500,000 for better use.
Yeah.
Move it in my way.
So basically what we're doing here relative to this account is having looked at where we were relative to the spending on this program and seeing the upcoming ending of the grant, we are moving some of those funds around. You'll see much of that funding is pass-through funding in terms of federal grants, and that's to the schools. So we're going to pass an additional $420,000 back through to the schools. And then we're also going to be, and we were not able to hire some positions, so we saved some money in terms of temp full-time, and we're going to move that into both those funds that transfer to the schools as well as some contracts with Choose Love and mostly UNH for their youth mental health first aid program. So fair enough criticism that it's not necessarily a better use, but it is, we're trying to maximize the use of those funds by putting them at programs that we think are effective.
Thank you. If I could continue.
Yes.
Wouldn't it have been more appropriate for you to say, I have got $500,000 and these are the better uses I find for that money, categorically list those so that we know where that money is going. I mean, we're budget people, we follow the budget, and we ought to know where the money is being spent.
I think it's a fair criticism, and I agree.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Are there any further questions? Representative Edwards.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is this money related to the $1 million that DHHS asked us to move last time, where the purpose of that $1 million was to establish clinical and mental health care in some schools?
So that would not be, that is part of BDAS, so the State Commission on Substance Misuse. This is part of our System of Care grant from the federal government through SAMHSA.
Follow up?
Follow up?
Okay, so I think I support this. I just want to make sure that if there's a coordination issue between DHHS and their $1 million spend and your spend, that coordination happens. And I don't even know if it's appropriate. It's just that we're moving big chunks of money in the last two fiscal committees towards school-based programs. So I just want to make sure we're in sync.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions? Seeing none, will the clerk, oops, I need a motion.
Move the item.
Thank you, Senator D'Alessandro. Do I have a second? Representative Leishman. Will the clerk please call the roll?
This is on 22-223. Representative Edwards.
Yes on 223?
Emmerich votes yes. Representative Erf.
Yes.
Representative Leishman.
Yes.
Senator Daniels.
Yes.
Senator Morse. Yes. Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
Senator D'Alessandro.
Yes.
Representative Umberger.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is 10-0.
Thank you. Vote being 10-0. FIS 223 passes. We now turn to FIS under, oops, did we change tabs? No, still 4. Under tab 4, FIS 22224. Oh, I'm sorry, tab 5, excuse me. FIS 22224, Department of Environmental Services.
Good morning, members of the committee. I'm Bob, for the record, I'm Bob Scott, Commissioner with the Department of Environmental Services, and with me is our Chief Operating Officer, Susan Carlson. And I'm pleased to answer any questions regarding this item.
Questions from the committee? Senator Daniels.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Can you define what a natural disaster is? I mean, if I have a well and suddenly I get a break in my pipe because the ground kind of gives way or whatever, I don't know if that's a natural disaster. It might be to me if I don't have water.
Right. So thank you for the question, Senator. So I have hard copies, but I also sent you all by email kind of we call it one-pagers for the Drinking Water Groundwater Trust Fund. This information will also be on the website as soon as you approve, so the homeowners know that information too. But the intent of this is not to pay for low-income qualifying well owners, things like that, the maintenance, or gee, I had a lightning strike and my motor needs to be replaced. It's intended to be for irreversible water supply issues caused by a natural disaster. Now that's where it could be a earthquake, it could be a hurricane that salinates water that wasn't before. So I guess I'm not. We haven't defined what a natural disaster is, but it has to be something that was not man-made, not contamination from a release of something, but something that is caused by nature, if you will, but it also has to be irreversible in scope. So I'll give you a couple examples again. So let's say there's an earthquake that drains the aquifer that your well is in, so now there is no water for you to get. That would qualify as an example. Or again, as I just mentioned, say your well is on the seacoast, major hurricane comes through, and now all the water in that aquifer the salt content is too much to be potable. That would qualify. By way of background, this is really builds off of the drought program that the Drinking Water Groundwater Trust Fund has been operating for a while now. We have similar context. This is an expansion of that because we realized drought is a good example, but that's not the only example. We wanted to be prepared to be able to provide assistance to our citizens.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Senator D'Alessandro.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Just two things. What's the income level you've established to identify low-income New Hampshire homeowners served by residential wells? That's number one. And how do you ascertain whether it's irreversible or not?
Right. So thank you for that, Senator. So the last question first, I think we did give ourselves some leeway. So to be fair, what we said is up to the department's discretion to determine that. But those are the type of examples I was giving. So we in the trust fund discussed this as they were approving this. The commission. We don't want it to be something like, gee, my motor needs to be replaced. Those are maintenance issues, not irreversible. The water supply is not available to you anymore issues. As far as the income levels, and again, I'm happy to hand out too if you want, but we do have thresholds that are built in that are very much based on what we are currently still doing for the drought program. So it's based on HUD income guidance and then MHI, and within that we built tiers for how much assistance will be available to folks, if that helps.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
And again, obviously for your constituents too, this will all be posted on our website
Right.
as a tool. So hopefully we don't have any natural disasters, but in the off chance we do, you can also, if somebody asks you, not obviously feel free to call me. I hope you know that, but you can also point them to the website and say, here's a potential assistance that you can get.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Edwards.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And my questions are sort of similar, but let me say it this way instead of in a form of a question. Whenever I see these kinds of programs where we're taking public monies and sending it directly to reimburse an individual, I get concerned about the transparency and the openness of the process because some people are just better informed than others. And so I heard you say you're going to be putting the availability of this on your website. But do you think that's really sufficient to make sure that people who are just generally unaware of public policy, that somehow we're reaching out and letting them know that there's a resource here for them as well?
I agree with you. It's probably not sufficient in a vacuum all by itself, but again, I'll point to our drought program. So we have staff that work that program. We try to target areas unfortunately, when we are in severe drought, and that's, we just kind of get out of one, and it looks like we may be possibly getting back into one for some areas of the state. So the staff try to do more targeted outreach also. So that the good part of this is it's not really 100% on the homeowner, because we're working with the well drillers, so the people providing that actual work for them, and they're aware of it also. So we have a little bit of a multiplier in getting out the word. So when somebody, it doesn't solve everything, but when somebody, the drought program, again, is my example, is contacting the well driller saying, I don't have enough water, what can I do, with that type of thing, that the driller, in this case, knows, and the equipment suppliers are the same, to be able to offer that program up, because that actually, to be blunt, for them, it helps get them a sale, but also helps provide that information to the well owner that this is available to them, even if they didn't know it otherwise. So we are looking for other outreach, and again, that's half the reason why I bring it up to you, that it'll be on our website, because I want you as legislators to be aware of it also.
Did you have a follow-up?
I do, and thank you, because you anticipated my follow-up about contacting the drillers themselves, and so that sounds like a good approach to me. Are you confident that you're hitting 100% of the drillers?
By and large, yes. I never want to say we're 100% for anything, but our understanding in working with them, because the well drillers, we regulate that, so whether they want to listen to us or not, they at least have to say they are. So they have at least been made available, that information to them, yes.
Senator Morris?
I was just going to move the item.
Oh, okay. Senator Morris moves the item, and Representative Edwards seconds. Will the clerk please call the roll?
On 224, Representative Edwards.
Yes.
Emmerich votes yes. Representative Erf.
Yes.
Representative Leishman.
Yes.
Senator Daniels.
Yes.
Senator Morse.
Yes.
Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
Senator D'Alessandro.
Yes.
Representative Umberger.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is 10-0.
Thank you. The vote being 10-0, the item passes. We now move to tab 7, FIS 22-236.
Morning again, Frank Adelblue, Commissioner of Education.
Good morning, Jen Harper. I'm the Director for Homeland Security and Emergency Management.
Are there questions? Representative Edwards?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I know the answer, but I'm compelled to ask because my school asked me to ask. We did a school bond at the Auburn Village School 3 years ago, and we put about $700,000 into physical security upgrades in accordance with the Homeland Defense audit that we asked for. And so my school would like to participate in getting some of this money to help with the $700,000 that we spent a couple years ago. Is there any provision for that, or is that impossible?
So in the Public School Infrastructure Fund grants that were initially provided in 2018, those did include the ability to do retroactive reimbursement for amounts that had been already spent towards qualified security projects. I'm looking at the thing, so Auburn had received 122,000 towards that at that period of time. In the current grant, we do not anticipate that there will be a retroactive provision for school projects that have already been done. The objective in this next tranche of money is to continue to make our environment more secure. So while we appreciate that the communities have already made those security measures and brought those forward, in this grant tranche, we're going to continue to provide enhance and improvements to that security further than what is already in existence.
Follow up?
So I think you kind of just said what I told them up front, which is we probably can't ask for retroactive money. But with this funding, if there are some additional security items on their list, they can apply for it still?
Absolutely. In fact, that's what we're hoping to see. So we've got our security plans in our schools. Those have been evaluated through Homeland Security. We've identified security risks in this grant process, which has not been, finally approved by the Commission, but the Homeland Security and Department of Education have been working on. We anticipate being able to rank those security risks, and we will fund the highest risk items first.
Thank you very much.
Are there any further questions? Senator D'Alessandro?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, and thank you, Commission. Commission, the money's available for both public and non-public schools. Tell me the realm that constitutes the non-public venues.
So what we're basically doing is we're using the Public School Infrastructure Fund processes for this, but we have so far secured two and seeking a third funding source that don't come with those same limitations. And so you've got $3.3 million that is in the Public School Infrastructure Fund. And this is as a result of funding that was not used out of the first tranche, projects that came in under budget. And so that fund, those 3.3, would be limited by statute to only public schools. The two other funding sources that we're seeking are ARPA funds, which don't come with that same restriction, as well as EANS funds, so Emergency Assistance to Non-Public Schools, which was the federal grant that was designated for non-public schools. And so to the extent that we receive those, we're going to put those funds into the tranche, and then we expect that we will fund the highest risk projects relative to students in New Hampshire.
Further question?
Yes, please go ahead.
And has a list been compiled of all of the schools that received money initially and what they did with that money? And B, who decides what's the criteria being used to designate risk?
Yep, so we do have a list, and we can provide that to you if you'd like to see that. I know, for example, Manchester received $1.517 million in the first tranche.
Yes.
And so we can provide that to you. That's no problem.
Thank you.
In terms of what is going to be funded in this next round is Homeland Security, and I don't know if you want to speak to this, Jen, but we'll go through kind of a ranking process. So we're going to open up a grant window. If you remember in the last grant process, we did a rolling grant just to get that money out and deployed as quickly as possible. In this tranche, we anticipate doing a grant window. We'll allow the grant applications to be received. Those will be scored by Homeland Security in terms of how risky they are, and then we will deploy that money according to the grant source, those three different sources, and what's allowable under those various sources.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there further questions? Seeing none, could I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Thank you, Senator Daniels. Do I have a second? Senator Gray, thank you. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Roll call on 236. Representative Edwards.
Yes.
Emmerich votes yes. Representative Erf.
Yes.
Representative Leishman.
Yes.
Senator Daniels.
Yes.
Senator Morse. Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
Senator D'Alessandro.
Yes.
Representative Umberger.
Yes,
Madam Chair, the vote is 10-0.
Thank you. The vote being 10-0, FIS 22236 passes. We now turn to, still in tab 7, to FIS 22237 from the Governor's Office for Emergency Relief and Recovery.
Morning, everyone. Taylor Caswell, Commissioner. Go over.
Good morning.
Morning.
Is there a question? Yes, Representative Leachman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here today. So who sets the 60-40 rate as far as the requirement to provide the match?
That is a provision of this program that we instituted in order to be able to maximize the use of the funds.
Further question, if I could, Madam Chair.
Sure, follow up.
So as you know, we've heard from communities like in getting emergency funds, they have to provide like 20%, and some have said that's not sufficient or they don't have that 20%. So in this particular case, are you confident that nursing homes can come up with the required match, or should it be higher? Like, again, who, is it the federal government setting this 60-40, or is it the state?
It's the state in this particular program. And we've done this in a number of other programs. In fact, the Invest in H program has a match requirement that's actually a 100% requirement. This, I think, reflects the fact that for the most part, what we're seeking to do with these funds are larger size projects that require a good amount of work to be able to complete, whether capital investments, infrastructure investments, building renovations, and those sorts of things. That, given the ARPA restrictions in terms of timing, really becomes a question as to how far along are the projects that we're going to be able to fund at this point and be able to see them complete prior to the termination of the ARPA deadlines. So all of those pieces go together when we're looking for ways to make investments that we can stretch the dollars as far as we possibly can for this particular instance, and also be able to recognize that these are typically for projects that have some level of maturity and effectively in a pipeline already, for the most part.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a couple of questions. There's been no real specific post-COVID pandemic analysis in long-term care facilities done by the Department of Health and Human Services. There have been a couple of 2 years in a row, some legislative attempts to appropriate money to do that, to hire an outside consultant, but that has not passed. And since the department was not involved in developing this program, what are you basing the determination that these projects will mitigate the next pandemic on?
Well, I think a couple of things. First off, I mean, as we all know, the long-term care and nursing home sector saw pretty significant impacts as we went through the pandemic, and a lot of those were outbreaks and spreaders that were occurring within those spaces with staff and with residents and family members. We know it's fairly well documented that renovations that will allow for additional spacing and safety measures to be put into place as a general rule, whether it's COVID or not, flu, other types of viruses that spread through nursing homes. This funding provides us an opportunity to make those investments for COVID-type pandemics or future pandemics, and really mitigate the risk that comes to those very vulnerable residents. So whether it's the spacing with renovations or whether it's making investments that will significantly enhance air circulation in a building through HVAC, these are all things that county nursing homes have difficulty making investments from a capital standpoint. And we're hoping that this program is going to be able to advance those that are in that pipeline significantly and really reduce the risk going forward.
Follow up.
Thank you. But without the participation of the department and the subject matter experts, how is Gopher going to be able to determine what the best ranking of these projects will be to have the most mitigating impact?
Well, I don't think it's fair to say that we've not ever spoken with HHS about this program, but I think the fact is that this is a development program, an infrastructure investment program into nursing homes that we know are in need of these types of investments. And this is an opportunity again to take funding that's available for this one moment in time, make those investments that are going to last way beyond any of us. And so, I feel fairly confident that the ability to manage 10 or 11 nursing homes in counties and their infrastructure requirements is within the capability of Gopher, but also we don't do these things in a vacuum. If there are instances where we have to have input from other departments, we do that every single day.
Follow up?
Thank you. Have you had conversations, I'm going to follow up on Representative Leishman's question. Have you had conversations with all 10 counties, and what kinds of assurances have you gotten that they are willing to front the 60% of the money, or will a lot of this 50 million be turned back?
I think I would say that this program is designed to provide a tool to county nursing homes that are in a position to be able to use it. We know at least of a couple that have expressed an interest, and the county nursing home representatives have expressed support for this program. This is $50 million of investments that we hope will be able to, again, make those types of investments in the long term for these nursing homes and their vulnerable populations.
One more, if I could.
Yes.
Thank you. So the worst devastation in long-term care occurred at the Veterans Home, where 20% of their residents died from COVID in 2 months. Why are you not including them? Are they not interested? Does federal law prohibit us from helping them with capital projects? Why not go where the devastation was the absolute worst?
Well, I mean, I absolutely acknowledge that. I think this program, in the scheme of dozens and dozens of programs that we've pushed through, is for specifically county nursing homes. In this instance, there may be demonstrated interest in moving a project forward for other specific types of institutions, such as the one you refer to, but this is a county nursing home program.
Thank you.
Are there further questions? Representative Leishman?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'd like to just drill down a little bit more on one of Senator Rosenwald's question. Have you specifically got a list working with the Department of Health and Human Services, who works daily with county nursing homes, about their needs? Or is this $50 million kind of like what you're putting out there, and then those with need will come forward? Do you have like any specifics?
We are basing the program in a recognition that nursing homes and the role that they play, and that the experience that they have been through, can be mitigated with investments in their infrastructure, whether it's HVAC, new heating systems. In some cases, they may want to be looking at efficiency upgrades, given what we're seeing in the energy markets right now. But there are also counties such as Sullivan County that is very far along in a very substantial rehabilitation of their entire facility, and this program would provide some assistance in helping them achieve that. There may be other nursing homes that have projects that are of similar size, or probably much smaller in size. But from the standpoint of making an investment to reduce the potential transmission of COVID, or in fact other viruses within the nursing home, this is an opportunity to make those investments for the long term.
Thanks, Madam Chair.
Are there any? Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you. How will funding energy efficiency upgrades reduce the spread of a virus?
As part of an HVAC upgrade, Senator, typically you will want to make investments. If you're making a significant investment in a new capital project that will improve the air circulation and the heating efficiency and cooling of a building, you're also going to make investments in the efficiency of the envelope of that building in order to maximize the benefit.
Could we ask that they send us some data that supports energy efficiency projects mitigating against viral transmission?
If I could just continue on that point, I think that we're talking about making an investment in the HVAC components of a building that from the standpoint of viral transmission will increase the capability to reduce those viral transmissions by circulating the air. As a result of making those investments for the air circulatory benefits, you are also going to achieve energy efficiency benefits as a result of installing a more efficient HVAC system. That's the connection that I'm making.
I guess we want to be reassured that circulating the air around is not just going to blow virus throughout the facility. That's why I'm hoping you can provide us with that backup data.
Which data specifically?
That shows that these energy efficiency air circulation projects will reduce virus transmission throughout a facility.
By its design, a new HVAC system that will be used in part to circulate air is going to increase the efficiency of the building. That's the connection that I'm making.
Yeah, I know. Senator D'Alessandro.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner, I don't know a lot about heating and air conditioning, but my dad was in the business all of his life, and my brother was in the business all of his life. HVAC, if you could promote air exchange, and that's the removal of the bad air and bringing in a better air, that might solve the problem. But recirculating existing air would cause you more harm than exists at the moment. Because if you're recirculating existing air, what you're doing is you're taking what's in that air and just redistributing it over and over again within the facility.
I agree completely.
So HVAC, if you want to air condition the situation, that's one thing. That's not going to save you any money. That's going to cost you money. That's a very expensive situation. That's all. So I think.
If I might, I'm sorry. If I might, I think the questions that are being asked are really design areas when the nursing home figures out what they need to do. I'm not, I would hope that whomever the nursing homes choose to do whatever work needs to be done, that they would ensure that it meets the safety standards that are out there for not only HVAC, but also for space in rooms. And so I understand where you're coming from, but I don't think that the Gopher office can come to grips with how the various nursing homes might design their nursing home. And I assume that the counties would work closely with DHHS, because I know there are rules out there and all kinds of things that they have to follow. So this is, in my opinion, is simply the money to allow the county nursing homes to move forward with required repairs. So that's my 2 cents. Senator Gray.
Thank you. Having worked at the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard and worked on air handling systems for submarines that submerge for 3 months at a time, the new air handling systems, and correct me if I'm wrong, allow you the opportunity to do other things. Humidification is one of the things that we've done for years. Electrostatic precipitators and other items that would help to clean the air and mitigate the rebreathing, of the air. So I mean, there, along with the air handling stuff that you're doing, the new system that you're putting in, it gives you the opportunity to make those modifications, to do those other things that allow for a better quality of air.
I agree.
Comment?
No, sir. Thank you for that, though.
Are there any further questions? Seeing none, could I have a motion, please? Okay, Senator Gray, second. Okay, Representative Emmerich. You please call the roll.
Roll call on 237. Representative Edwards.
Yes.
Emmerich votes yes. Representative Erf.
Yes.
Representative Leishman.
Yes.
Senator Daniels.
Yes.
Senator Morse. Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
Senator Del Sandro.
Yes.
Representative Umberger.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is 10-0.
The vote being 10-0, FIS 22-237 passes. Thank you very much. We now turn to FIS 22-238, Department of Information Technology.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Dennis Goulet, the Commissioner of the Department of Information Technology.
Are there questions on FIS 22-238? Representative Edwards.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think this feels like 3 different questions, but the first one up is $459,000 for a 1-year license for just an interface. Sounds like it's a tremendous amount of money. Are we getting some application licensing as well, or are we just really licensing the interface component?
This is actually licensing for the platform and the application that would serve as many citizens as wanted to be served in the state of New Hampshire. So it's pretty significant. In other words, it's basically for all of Vinny.
All right, follow. Okay, so when I read this, maybe I'm just suffering poor reading. It just sounded like all this was a licensing for the interface and not for the underlying application. If it's for that as well, then it sounds much better. But okay, so this is $459,000 for 1-year license. Will this same amount show up in the next budget cycle? Two times 459? Is that where we're going with this?
Yes, sir. It's a timing issue now where we didn't, during the planning of this biennial budget, we hadn't considered that we were running pretty quickly on public health response stuff and actually didn't plan it into this budget. But the intent is on the DHHS side to plan it in the next biennial budget.
Follow up?
Yes, please.
Is this the application that you all did a privacy impact assessment on? I know that you got engaged a contractor to do one PIA, and I'm seeing a head shake of a no. So I'm just curious. Although this really great bill died this year, I'm hoping that the department still keeps moving in the direction of doing PIAs on sensitive applications. And this vaccine registry has gotten a lot of people's attention. So if you were to do a PIA on this, would you need supplemental money beyond the 459?
Thanks for the
Yeah,
question. Just to clarify.
Commissioner, you can bring,
Yeah, David, come on up.
don't struggle. We're not.
Thank you.
Thank you. David Wieters, Information Services Director for DHHS. So in terms of doing privacy impact assessments, as we discussed in some of the legislative bills that we were working on, we do not have sufficient resources to do the robust privacy impact assessments that would be required for all of our systems. However, we do have a robust security process to look at all of our systems. This particular system was developed by Deloitte on our Salesforce organization with our team. So it's really on our environment, and we've gone through all the security practices to ensure that it's HIPAA compliant and follows all the parameters that you would anticipate from a PIA or a privacy impact assessment were followed. And we can certainly do an overview PIA on this component of the vaccine registration, scheduling, and administration, which is what this system does.
Okay, just because it's my opportunity to say one of my favorite quotes, that you can have secure. I can't even get the quote straight now. But anyways, as you know, there's a distinction between security and privacy, and you mentioned security primarily in your remarks. So, do you think it's also covering the privacy aspects, your security look?
Thank you for the question. Certainly, our privacy officer was involved through the development of the application and reviewing it from a privacy perspective as well as a security perspective. And just for this group's edification, we are looking at privacy by design in the future. So it'll be privacy first, security second. But you need both in order to have a good system. You need to understand what you're securing and why you're securing it from a privacy perspective, and then you use security to do it, if that makes sense.
Follow up?
So I love that. I love that answer. I really do. I think this one's from Mr. Goulet. I have mentioned a few times in fiscal committee meetings and maybe in HHS oversight that we're spending a tremendous amount of money on a lot of different IT projects. And I keep coming back to the idea that I'd really like to see a holistic summary of all of the IT project work that we're doing. Because as we just fund each one of these, I'm just concerned whether or not we're seeing the big picture, the aggregate of it. And this isn't the day to do that, but I just would like to encourage you to, if you have something like that already, I'd be happy to come by your office and get familiar with it.
Yes. In fact, we are doing that right now, and we do it in advance of the biennial budget planning process. We do what's called an agency information technology plan for each agency. We work with the agencies on the business side to do that, and that really talks about, from a business perspective, what sort of IT projects we're going to be doing or planning during the future biennium. And our expectation is that those plans align with budget requests that would be coming through. And we also take all of those plans and we look at them and use them to guide our overall statewide information technology strategy as well. So, and I can share all of that with anybody that would like to see it.
Are there, Senator Daniels?
Thank you. Commissioner, in response to one of Representative Edwards' questions, you mentioned that going forward, you would be looking to put this into the budget.
Yes, sir.
And so I refer to the last statement on your information to us. In the event that federal funds are no longer available, general funds will not be requested to support the program. So Kind
Well,
of wondering what it is.
if we look at the, that was a tough question to answer because, and I think that's partly incorrect answer, I'd have to say. But when we look at the funding mix, in other words, if it's flowing through class 27, which is the DOIT budget, then the funding mix for DHHS is largely not general funds. If it were flowing through a DHHS budget line, and we haven't discussed that specifically, then again, a lot of that would likely not be general funds as well. So, but it is a mix. For us, it would be a mix.
Follow up? So to be clear, then your intent is for this vaccine database to just go on continuously?
Public health would like to have the registration and scheduling capability ready should we need it in the future. When looking around the country, I was in place as the president of the National Association of State CIOs during the pandemic, and the gold standard for states was to have, in terms of citizen service and citizen response, was to have a central capability that not only could handle a central registration from an efficiency and a service perspective, but also could scale to the entire population. And this system does that for New Hampshire.
Thank you.
Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Given that there's a patient portal, at least either in place or imagined, are there any plans to have Vinny interface with the commercial pharmacy market in New Hampshire or other states so that if somebody's living in southern New Hampshire, they can schedule an appointment at a pharmacy in Massachusetts?
So my understanding is this would not be used for commercial pharmacy scheduling. Most of the commercial pharmacy organizations have their own scheduling EMR system to do that. And this is really focused on scheduling, registration, and administration of vaccines or associated with COVID, flu, and other vaccines that public health networks would be performing.
Are there for Representative Irf?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in the absence of a pandemic, and I believe the last one was quite some time ago, what benefit does this $500,000 a year provide to the citizens of the state of New Hampshire?
I'll try that. So that's a good question. So we're using Salesforce for many different components, and having the licensing allows us to leverage that environment to build other applications. So in public health, for example, we're using Salesforce for Granite Trace, which is our contact tracing, patient monitoring, and case investigation system. And we're targeting other systems like our disease surveillance system to be on the Salesforce platform. So this specific fund pays for the licensing for the individuals in the immunization group, but it can be expanded and you leverage across a larger enterprise license agreement that we're negotiating with Salesforce to reduce our costs over time, leveraging that one platform.
Follow up?
Follow up?
So is it fair to say that this money is really not dedicated to the COVID pandemic, but rather to building out a Salesforce system for who knows what other uses you might decide to use it for?
I would say we need this funds to be able to maintain the COVID-19 solution. If we didn't have the funds for this, we would have to turn that system off and then find other funds in excess of $459,000 to support all the other initiatives. So this is a component of what we can build off of. And so the idea is to not duplicate effort and leverage these funds that are for COVID-19 to not just be wasted in the future, but also be able to be leveraged for other solutions as we go forward. But it is really right now for the COVID-19 pandemic work.
One more. So I get that. But I also understand pandemics are few and far between. Whereas software changes dramatically in years. much less decades or over turn of a century. So the notion that you're spending money on a lot of money on Salesforce licenses, which will either not be used, according to what you were just saying, or by the time you need what you're concerned about in terms of the COVID-19 or a similar type pandemic in some number of years out there, Salesforce are probably out of business and it's been some other system that's come into place. So I'm just wondering why you think that this is a good long-term investment. I get the short-term needs that you might use your Salesforce licenses for other purposes, but that's not what you're asking for here. That's not the funding you're asking for here.
Yeah, so the, not having a registration system in place was a gap prior to COVID. So it was something that public health had wanted and had in their vision before this. So it's, it's valuable outside of the context of a large-scale pandemic. It's important. It's important for us to have that capability.
Are there any any further questions? Yes, you may.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, so during last budget cycle, one of the things that we heard that was compelling was that we had a number of IT systems that were no longer being supported, and as a result of their lack of support, we were increasingly subjecting ourselves to some security risks. So when I see that we are investing in the Salesforce platform, I'm just curious, are we executing the plan that we talked about a year ago, which was getting off of vulnerable legacy systems by migrating some functions to I would call Salesforce a state-of-the-art kind of application?
Yes, that you hit the nail on the head there. If we go out now on a modernization effort, if we go out to bid for a new system, for example, or a replacement of an older system, it's highly likely that respondents will be using one of the two large platforms that are out there today, one of them being Salesforce and the other being Microsoft Dynamics 365. In the case of case management, which is what we're kind of talking about here, and also grants management potentially throughout the state, our enterprise solution is Salesforce. So when we look at DHHS has multiple case management systems. The vision there is to, over time to collapse those down and leverage the licenses that we've invested in across the agency and across the other agencies as well. There are other agencies that are very interested in and are actually running Salesforce for case management.
Are there any further questions? Seeing none, could I have a motion, please?
I'd like to move the item.
Thank you. Representative Edwards moves FIS 22-238. Do I have a second? Second by Senator Rosenwald. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Roll call for 238. Representative Edwards.
Yes.
Emmerich votes yes. Representative Erf.
No.
Representative Leishman.
Yes.
Senator Daniels.
No.
Senator Morse.
Yes.
Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
Senator D'Alessandro.
Yes.
Representative Umberger.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is 8-2.
The vote being 8-2 on FIS 22-238, the item passes. We now turn to FIS 22-240, Department of Administrative Services. And if I am not mistaken, we're going to talk about not only FIS 22-240 in tab 7, but we're also going to talk about 242 in tab 8, 239 in tab 9, and 241 in tab 9. So that because these are all interrelated, that we felt that it would be the best thing to kind of get some sort of central thought process on what's going on with employee retention, etc.
Okay, so I'm Charlie Arlinghouse. I'm the Commissioner of Administrative Services. There are two pairs of items, right? There's a policy proposal and then the money piece, the actual thing. Senate Bill 226, which passed and was recently signed by the governor, although as we were preparing the documents, we weren't sure, created the possibility for the state to do recruitment programs, retention programs, et cetera. And that law requires Fiscal Committee approval requires the Division of Personnel of Admin Services to adopt a statewide policy on both types of things. And then for any iteration of such a thing done by any agency, for both of those things to come before fiscal. They're two separate things. So the two things that are later in your agenda are the policies, without which these are not legal. So I'm going to assume that if either one of these passes, you'll likely adopt a policy that makes it legal. But the policies themselves are sort of a broad structure. I don't think they require a lot of explanation. It's a lot of formal policy work. And Matt Mavericks, who's sitting behind me, did a lot of the policy work. But if we have legally questions, I'm going to drag him up here in particular. So there are two different things. And I'm going to talk about them from the smaller price tag one to the bigger price tag one, because they're very different. So there are a lot of ways that people retain employees or get employees today. And you know, you see the signs at Dunkin' Donuts, you know, signing bonus or free donuts. And we don't do free donuts as a state, but we might do other things. But the one of them, the smaller item is, which I think is fiscal 242, is a referral incentive program. And the idea behind that is we need employees and we're looking for them. And one of the ways you get employees is to have people to interview and they come in the door. So this is something where we basically turn the entire workforce into recruiters for the state. And that if you get somebody to come work here, you could, you're responsible for recruiting them, and it would be done on the application as a formal way to do it, to make sure we don't run into he said, she said things. And we do actually hire the person, that there is a bonus both for the new employee, assuming you stay for a while. There's a bonus both for the new employee and for the referrer. I think I said that right. That's the one program. And I think that's the program that probably everybody looks at and says, okay, this isn't a bad idea, because if we don't get anybody, we don't spend a dime. And if we end up spending money, it's because we got employees that work through the system. The second thing, and I think it's the one that you're most interested in discussing, is 240, which is a retention incentive similar to some of the programs that were done during the state of emergency. This is something we worked directly with the governor's office on. Obviously, you probably figured that out. That given that it's an admin services proposal and none of the money goes to anybody who works at admin services, which I'm not complaining about, by the way, but it's for direct care people. So it's basically, you know, New Hampshire Hospital, Glencliff, Sununu Center, et cetera, and the prison, obviously. And the idea is that the staffing pressures, there are a lot of staffing pressures all across state government, but the staffing pressures in direct care positions is quite significant right now. And this is something where you can't just not do a policy or your workload reduced. At the end of the day, the prison has to function, period. I'm using the prison as an example, but this works for all of them. And they have to function. And if 10 people leave, you don't sort of curtail your operation and have 14 of the prisoners work from home, because that sort of doesn't work in a prison. And so the idea is to try to retain the staff. This would end up applying to about I think we have the numbers in on page, I don't have page numbers here. Oh, page 6. So I think it's, boy, I used to be able to see, 1,300 full-time, 280 part-time people. Those positions aren't all filled. Obviously, nobody would get a bonus if the position weren't filled, but we're actively recruiting lots of them. About 15% of the state workforce, if you want to think of it that way. But the idea is to take people who already work here and try to keep them from leaving, because one of your best recruiting tools is to retain an employee and not have to fill it over. So that's the idea behind this, and it's the kind of procedure that was done during the state of emergency. And I think that I don't want to speak for the governor's office, but we worked hand in glove with them to develop the program, and they have a very strong interest, and as do people in these departments, obviously, in trying to keep employees and reduce staffing shortages. I think the price tag is all laid out and everything else. It's about $4.2 million. Some for full-time, some for part-time, if that helps, if that's a question people might wonder about, right? The idea is to make part-time positions eligible in both of these cases for things as well. A lot of work in state government is done by people who work part-time. Any big questions? Or little questions?
Representative Edwards.
Thank you, Madam Chair. About 5 years ago, I went and visited, I think, Mr. Galley after trying to use the state's employment website to search for jobs of different categories, just to see how the look and feel works for a typical potential employee. 5 years ago, we were using, I think, a free application that was just horrible. It wasn't worth the money we were paying for it. I'd like to know, in the 5 years, has the department been able to get a professional job recruitment website up to where people can effectively search for vacancies and qualifications and the like? Like if they're a veteran, can they find out which jobs are open, preferences to veterans, for example? Do we have a good website, or is it still the 5-year-old stinker?
It's not still a 5-year-old stinker, but the question, do we have a good website or is it a 5-year-old stinker, presumes two options, and there are lots of options in the middle of that range. I think we have a good website. What we're using now is the talent management module. Talent management is what those kind of people all use to talk about hiring. The talent management module of the Infor system, which is the state's ERP system that governs our finances, payroll, et cetera. And the idea is to integrate the two. We have, since about October of 2017, made significant changes to that website. And basically, we had a meeting where the governor decided to do what you did too, and he tried to apply for a job, and I think we rejected him, and he was unqualified for a cleaner position he applied for, and he had trouble applying. One of the things was the different browsers you can use to access it, and we've changed that. I would say every few months we have a team that regularly looks at this. The HRP section of FDM, which is one of our divisions that manages the enterprise system. And so we make changes all the time. I would say that where we are today is that it's better, and it's getting better, and it gets better every day. But when we talk about recruitment, I ask, I've told you this before, that I interview everybody we hire lately. And so, think of it as maybe over the last 9 months, about 100 people that have sort of passed through. And one of the questions I ask almost all of them, it sort of depends how the interview's going, is how did you find applying for a job? How did you find interacting with the state? And I would say that there's still a range on that. And what I'm pleased about is that there are a number of people. It's a particularly important thing externally, right? And in the state system, maybe 30% of the people come external and 70% are moving from one state job to another. But people who are familiar with applying for jobs in the market today are more optimistic about our system because with so many larger companies in particular, there are systems. You sign up, you register, you create an account, and all of that kind of stuff. And that's the pain of the process. Most of the jobs I've applied for in my entire life have been resume and cover letters sent through the U.S. Postal Service to somebody. And so, I find the system horrifying and freakish. And although, and don't say that when Alex is here, but but if you're used to this, if you're used to applying for jobs electronically, you're much more used to it now. And so what I would say is we're getting better, and I would hope that we're at about a B- at this point, and which is unacceptable because I think we lose applicants because of it. But we get better all the time.
Are there any further questions? Senator Daniels.
Thank you. If I was an employee and you were trying to retain me, and you give me a $2,000 retention bonus, I guess. It looks like the requirement is that I stay for 90 to 180 days. Is that correct?
There's there's a time frame. I don't know what the exact difference between the two dates is, but July 1st to November 3rd. So you have to be here on July 1st and you have to stay through November 3rd.
Okay.
So that's probably like 125 days.
One of the other items, I mean, one of them mentions new hires and
Oh, that's on the
referrals.
referral. Yes, that one. Sorry.
And then there was one for retention, which mentioned 180, 90 to 180 days. I guess my question is, when that time is over, is the expectation that this retention bonus is going to continue? Or are we just paying somebody?
It's a one-time payment.
Okay.
So think of on a referral. Think of it this way. I've got an open position. I'm interviewing right now for a CFO if you're interested. And you come in, you apply for the job, and it turns out that let's just say Matt recommended you on your job application. You say recommended by Matt Maverick George. If we hire you, the clock starts ticking, and I nudge Matt and go, hey, let's see if he stays. And then if you stay through the time you're supposed to stay, then you both get a check. You don't get another check in 6 months. You don't get another check 6 months after that. It's now. And we're going to see if that works. On some basic level, this is an experiment to see if that really does, in fact, make a difference. By the way, I suspect it does. Or, McDonald's and Dunkin' Donuts and Lincoln Financial and everybody else wouldn't do it too.
Yes, and that's not my question. My question is specifically about the retention part, not the referral.
Retention, same way. We're asking you to stay, and it's a one-time payment.
Yes, and so basically we are paying somebody $2,000 to stay 90 days or 180 days.
Yeah, I think it's 125. Yes. I think if you think about it sort of philosophically, the idea is to there's obviously not a long life to this. You can't do that where you every quarter for the rest of their career you give somebody $2,000 if they make it another quarter and another quarter, because if nothing else that just becomes part of base pay. But it's basically right now we're in a time period where there's a lot of churn, and we have a lot of issues in hiring people. And that's particularly true. I don't want to speak for HHS or corrections, but it's particularly true in some of those areas. We talk a lot about nurses, but it's not just nurses. It's direct people who do direct care and work sort of in care or behind the wall or whatever have you, and that's where there's a lot of pressure. And the idea is to in a time period of high vacancies is try to keep that from exploding. And to try to keep a lid on it.
Yeah,
there are a lot of things that aren't ideal right now, and this is one of them.
Okay, and I understand that. I guess I just question because it doesn't seem so 90 to 100, or you say 125 days is an extraordinary amount of time for the money that you're putting out. I mean, it basically equates to like $6,000 a year if it were continuous. But for someone that was looking to leave, to stay for 90 days, I'm not sure really what it's giving us.
So it's a good question. One of the things when you're constructing a program like this and you think of I said we work with the governor's office on this, and frankly, where the governor's office started is we want to do something. We want to, and in this realm, and they look for recommendations on time periods. It's an argument to be made for 30 days that I think it's too short, but there's an argument to be made for a year. I'm not going to give you any money unless you stay for another year, and probably, every number in between. I think the finalists for the time period that we considered are probably 3 months and 6 months, and it's one of those things. If I'm honest, there's no science around this, and so we're making a judgment call.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Seeing none, could I
I
please?
just have a quick question, Madam Chair. I'm sorry.
That's quite all right. Go ahead.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks, Charlie, for appearing and your comic relief at times. That's
Oh, thank you.
appreciated. So as I understand, in all 4 items, I believe you said that we have a vacancy rate that is approaching 20%. People are leaving at a roughly 12%. What are we doing for incentives to keeping people here? I understand that ARPA funds are going to be used for people that take care of prisoners and the Department of Health and Human Services areas, but what about DOT and DES? Are there any funds available for retention of those departments, for instance, or even your department?
No, so it's one of those things. There's a sort of an obvious comment to make when you're retaining direct care people, which is something along the lines of, so accountants don't matter. And I say that because I have a lot of accountants, and it's not true. And the thing is that you can make a case for doing this with basically every profession in the state, every worker group in the state. And, I would love to do it for building service workers. I've talked to you in the past about that issue. We're doing a lot of things to try to recruit and retain people. And there's we've gave the LB a chart, and I know you're going to want to talk later about vacancy rates and all of that and what the recruitment unit is doing. And we can talk about that. But one of the things is that in a climate where we are today, there are some things you can do and some things you can't do. I think that bonuses of this nature are meant to be, by their nature, I guess, extraordinary, right, and not structured in such a way that they would become commonplace. So what you're left to doing, if you want to retain good people that you have, is you try your damnedest to do it. And if you are, there's an incentive. Part of the incentive is, I think every manager wants to be a good manager, in part because they, I would hope, are nice people. But part of it is, it's really difficult when somebody valuable to you leaves. And frankly, when you have 80% of your position filled, everybody's pretty valuable. When somebody leaves, there's an enormous time crunch and difficulty with them leaving. And so a lot of what you do is you try to make sure you run around and you're nice to people. You try to emphasize the things the state does well. The state wage scale is a little bit lower. State benefits are really good, and the time off is really good. And you make sure you work with people and that they can utilize the time off, and which can be a burden. If somebody took all the a 10 or 15-year employee took every annual day, every floating holiday, and used up all their sick leave, it's like 20 to 25% of the year they could miss, and you have to work with that, and so that's a lot of it. Frankly, the things that anybody can do at any company or any unit to try to keep employees are human more than financial. I mean, don't get me wrong. Financial. Hi, you're offering me 70. The other job's offering me 95. Guess which one I'm taking? That's an issue. But if you can get into the conversation, then a lot of it is they need to think that that's a good place to work, and it needs to be a good place to work.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there any further questions? Seeing none, I would like a motion on FIS 22-240. This is on the 4 million for employee bonus.
I would move the item.
Thank you, Senator D'Alessandro. Second by Senator Rosenwald. Okay. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Roll call on 240. Representative Edwards.
Yes.
Emmerich votes yes. Representative Erf.
Yes.
Representative Leishman.
Yes.
Senator Daniels.
Yes.
Senator Morse. Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
Senator D'Alessandro.
Yes.
Representative Umberger.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is 10-0.
The vote on FIS 22-240 is 10-0. It passes. Now what I'd like to do is take 242, 239, and 241 as one motion. So,
Move the items.
okay, thank you.
I would second it.
All right, thank you. Representative Leachman and Senator D'Alessandro. Since these are all tied together, I'd appreciate it. So, thank you. Representative, will you call the roll, please?
So this is a roll call for 230, 242, 239, and 241. Representative Edwards.
Yes.
Emmerich votes yes. Representative Erf.
Yes.
Representative Leishman.
Yes.
Representative Daniels. I mean
Yes.
Senator Daniels, sorry.
Yes.
Senator Morse. Yes. Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
Senator D'Alessandro.
Yes.
Representative Umberger. Madam Chair, the
Yes.
vote is 10-0 on all three.
Okay, the vote being 10-0, FIS 22-239, 241, and 242 all pass. So, thank you. We'll now turn to tab 10, FIS 22-233, request from the judicial branch. Tab 10. Oops, I don't think you're on. Thank you.
Good morning, Diane Martin, Director of the Administrative Office of the Courts, here with Donna Raymond, our Fiscal Manager.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the judicial branch on this particular request?
I would move the item.
Thank you, Senator D'Alessandro moves. Do I have a second? Second by Senator Rosenwald. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Roll call on 233. Representative Edwards.
Yes.
Emmerich votes yes. Representative Erf.
Yes.
Representative Leishman.
Yes.
Senator Daniels.
Yes.
Senator Morse. Yes. Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
Senator D'Alessandro.
Yes.
Representative Umberger.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is 10-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You got away easy today. Don't expect that every time, okay? All right. No, thank you very much. Okay, we now move to tab 11, which is FIS 22228 from the Department of Corrections. That's tab 11.
Good morning, Madam Chair and honorable members of the committee. For the record, Helen Hanks, Commissioner of the Department of Corrections, and to my right is our Director of Administrative Services, Jonathan Hansen.
Thank you. Are there any questions, Senator Rosenwald?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not a question, but I didn't want to take your earlier item off consent, but I'd like to congratulate the department on its fantastic use of the 340B program to save really $1 million in 6 months on 2 kinds of drugs is fantastic. And I hope the county houses of correction are looking at that fantastic program too and maybe someday they can coordinate with you to purchase those drugs for Hep C and HIV and also save that kind of money. It's fantastic.
Thank you, Senator Rosenwald, and I would be remiss if I didn't thank Commissioner Shibinet and her team at HHS helping us get to this final place. And with that, I also reaffirm we were just recertified, so we'll continue down that road. And if there's an opportunity to collaborate, then we'll certainly do that.
Yippee.
Representative Leishman.
Thanks, Madam Chair. And I guess I'd just like to echo what Senator Rosenwald said. And the chairwoman mentioned earlier the detailed and responses we've been getting have been much better. And I just want to echo that as well. Your recruiting and retention efforts and the attachment was very good. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Senator D'Alessandro.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I think the information that you've presented to us is really outstanding. And I can recall when we had these discussions about pharmaceuticals a number of years ago. And it's nice to see something very positive happen as a result of those discussions. In the course of our discussions, we said we could save money. There was a methodology in place to do it, and we could do it. Hopefully, that same situation will occur in the recruitment and retention part, so that we'll retain corrections officers and be able to recruit, so that our overtime will be lower, and we'll be able to fill those spots. So kudos to the department, and thank you so much for paying attention to detail. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Are there further questions?
Madam Chair, move the item.
Okay. Okay. Is that all right? Go ahead.
Thank you. I was reading, I think it was the Union Leader this past week or so, and the main subject was the Sununu Youth Center. But in it, there was also an allegation that we are picking up on sexual and physical abuse in, I think, the corrections department. And so I wanted to ask you what we're doing proactively to try to do what we can to make sure that if there is abuse, that it's stopped, and whether or not you think we do have a situation where we've got some problems.
Thank you for that question, Representative Edwards, and I'm very proud of our organization. We have been certified under the Prison Rape Elimination Act for a number of years, and actually we just finished a cycle audit at our women's facility in Shea Farm, and we've passed those audits year after year. That information is available on our intranet page. We do an excellent job surveilling, educating, and moving forward that your sentence does not equal sexual assault, and creating pathways for that communication. And we have dedicated what are called PREA investigators that investigate allegations of both resident on resident, resident to staff, and numerous variables under the federal PREA law. In addition to that, and thankfully so, Governor and Council also just passed a contract to allow us to further create both educational videos of residents who've been incarcerated and staff education materials that will continue to elevate both our surveillance, education, and response to allegations of sexual assault during incarceration.
Yeah, so thank you for everything you're doing in that area. I think the allegation was made in a self-serving way, but I just wanted to get you on the record this way to say what we're doing and whether or not you regard us as having a problem in this area. Thank you for your answer.
Okay.
You're very welcome.
I have a motion from Senator Daniels to accept FIS 2228, seconded by Representative Edwards. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Roll call on 228. Representative Edwards.
Yes.
Chairman votes yes. Representative Erf.
Yes.
Representative Leishman.
Yes.
Senator Daniels.
Yes.
Senator Morse.
Yes.
Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
Senator D'Alessandro.
Yes.
Representative Umberger.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is 10-0.
Vote being 10-0, FIS 22228 passes. We now turn to the late item, FIS 22243, and that is located in tab 11. 12?
I've got it at 12.
Okay. Mine's in 11.
Okay.
Whatever. It's someplace back there. And this is a request from the Governor's Office of Emergency Relief and Recovery.
Hello again, Taylor Caswell. This is an item that came to us in between the deadlines. This is funding that is the second half of funding that already has gone to virtually every community in the state as part of their fiscal recovery funds, local fiscal recovery funds. The state received a second tranche of this funding just about a week ago, and we really didn't want to delay in moving those funds forward. All of the communities that received this fund have already indicated their willingness, and had all the appropriate paperwork taken care of to move that. It's just a simple matter of getting those funds transferred to those communities as soon as we can. So the total amount of the requests here is $56 million, give or take a little bit. It mirrors the exact amount that we distributed just about a year ago for the same purpose.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, will the clerk call the roll? Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Senator Rosenwald and Senator Daniels. I'm just getting a little anxious here. I'm sorry. Okay, will the clerk please call the roll?
Roll call on 2022. Representative Edwards.
Yes.
Emmerich votes yes. No. Oh, I'm sorry. My mistake. 243.
Thank you.
Representative Edwards.
Yes on that one too.
Okay. Emmerich votes yes. Representative Erf.
Yes.
Representative Leishman.
Yes.
Senator Daniels.
Yes.
Senator Morse. Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
Senator D'Alessandro. Yes. Representative Umberger.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is 10-0.
The vote being 10-0, FIS 22-243 passes. Okay. We have several information items. I understand that Health and Human Services withdrew information item 22227. Otherwise, are there any questions on any of these informational items? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to the audit information items. Representative Leishman, I understood you had some questions for corrections. Is that correct?
Liquor.
Oh, liquor. I'm sorry. Yeah. FIS 22217.
Go ahead and introduce myself. Good morning.
Good
Rose
morning.
Wyant, Director of Administration and Chief Operating Officer. We do have more of a crew out in the hallway. They're making their way in.
Okay, thank you. I know these meetings get to be a little boring, but for those that aren't in the hot seat, so not a problem. Welcome back, everyone.
Thank you. I'll just start and see if I can answer questions. And
Okay, go ahead, Representative Leishman.
Yes, thank you, and thanks for being here.
morning.
So on a number of items, it talks about a management plan being completed, but then it goes on to say written plan nearing completion. I was just kind of curious what that all meant.
Of course, just to keep for continuity throughout this process, as we've been updating this corrective action plan, we haven't deleted anything. So that's just showing the progress along the way. The part in bold is the current information. It's just, that was just along the way as it was being developed, that those comments are still there in the notes.
And then just one further quick
Mhm.
question. There was a section, I don't seem to have it right in front of me, but you're gone to rules for some changes, and it says you're either going or there. What's the status of your rules presentation?
We have several rules in development or currently in the jail car process. The licensing rules, which I know show up in here, there are several rules that show up in here, several places. The licensing rules have all been updated and completed. Those are in place. That's chapter 700. We're currently over at jail car for a section of rules, chapter 500, which is, those relate to particular licenses. Currently in the drafting process are the rules pertaining to the enforcement policy, which would be like sanctions and fines and so forth, as well as the hearings and procedural process.
And just one quick further follow-up, Madam
Certainly.
Chair. Thank you. So during the review of legislation last year, we learned that reports that everyone thought were going to fiscal or finance were going to Mr. Hunt over in Commerce. Is that all straightened out now? Are those being forwarded to the chair of the Finance Committee? Do you know?
Good morning, Deputy Chief Danielle Elston with New Hampshire Liquor Enforcement. We are still sending them to Commerce. We can send them direct to the chair of fiscal if we need to. We continue to send them to Commerce. The direction for the report came out of Commerce, but if we can continue, we can send them to the chair of fiscal if that's what we choose.
Yeah, I think that was the agreement. I was at the Commerce Committee when it came up, and I think Mr. Hunt said he thought they should go to finance or the fiscal chair. But
Okay,
thank you.
we can send them.
Thanks, Madam Chair. That's all I have.
Are there any further questions on this audit? Seeing none. Are there any questions on the audit on Sununu Youth Center? Since HHS left, I hope not. Okay. Next meeting. Our next meeting is scheduled for July 22nd.
I was just curious. We just had somebody come up to talk about an informational item. Are you going to have Mr. Ribson talk about his quarterly report or not? I can get with him offline.
No, I just asked if anyone had any questions on FIS 22218, and nobody said they did.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes, I did have a
All
question on
right.
218.
Then thank you, Mr. Ribson. Yeah, boy, you almost
Yeah,
escaped.
I'm sorry the number didn't shake me, but okay, so Mr. Ribson, I'm looking at unresolved item number 1, and when I go read what it says this is the legislature's issue to solve. I'm just curious, since it sounds like there are several statutes involved, are you working with the legislator for legislation for the coming term, next term? And if so, who?
At this point, I'm unaware of any legislative interest in addressing item number 1.
I think we're obligated to be interested, right? I mean, okay, so we'll talk about that offline. But I've been getting involved in the Sununu Center a lot in the last couple of years, so I could help you with that, I think. Then on item 6, observation 6, it says to go ahead and institute comprehensive performance measures after the strategic plan is done. It looks like your strategic plan is now done. Do you have any roadblocks to keep you from fully resolving observation 6?
Yeah, what we've said in both the strategic plan, these things were all done anticipating that we would be moving forward with the legislation that was being considered this past session in terms of moving into the new facility, changing the clinical program, everything aligned with that. So we're in a little bit of a limbo right now as to how to actually operationalize and whether to operationalize those things, because we're not quite sure what the future holds,
So-
right?
so-
We're currently in a moment where state law would have the facility closed in March of 2023 with absolutely no alternative in place.
All right, so I'm just playing check marks with you now. But
Yep.
you've got a check mark and substantially resolved. As I listen to what you're saying, sounds to me like you're partially resolved at the best.
Yeah, well, we had the plan laid out in place. It was all incorporated within the A&M plan and incorporated within our strategic priorities. But to move forward, we need to kind of understand what the future holds.
All right, thank you for your indulgence, Madam Chair.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. Okay. I'll now try again. Oh, yes.
Madam Chair, just a quickie. In the report that we got from HHS, the numbers are so tiny that I can't read them. And I've talked about that over and over and over again. They've got to do something. If they're going to give us information, make the information readable so that we can get something out of it. I realize it's not your responsibility, but I've been looking at these things for a number of years, and they've gotten smaller as the years have gone by. My eyesight has not improved substantially. So we've got to make a change there.
Yes,
We've got to have that.
I believe that Senator Rosenwald has agreed to she and I working on an overhaul of this report
Oh, great.
over the summer.
Sherlock Holmes magnified.
Yeah, we need more. Well, we will not have any. We will not have any Sherlock Holmes magnifying glasses. That's necessary, but
That would be wonderful.
we all recognize that we want the report to be useful
Yes, exactly.
and meet the needs of the Fiscal Committee, and so we'll come up with something.
Right. And my second point is, with the recruitment and retention, we were going to get a report either periodically or meeting every other meeting, but as to what's happened, how successful it's been, what's happened to the number of vacancies, how many have been filled, and how that's going, just to keep us all abreast of how things are moving. And I'm particularly interested in that. I sponsored the bill, and happy that it obviously passed. But indeed, we should be kept up to date as to what's going on.
Okay.
I know that's.
So, Mr. Arlinghouse, you'll provide that for July?
We do, just to cut in, Madam Chair,
Oh.
we did send an email from Charlie with kind of an update. I think some of the numbers may have changed relative to. Okay.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Ripson. I'm sorry, I must have missed the email. Oh, oh, you mean while I was driving down, you wanted me to, look at my email? Yeah.
Good. Great. Perfect. When did
Yeah,
we have-
thank you.
this morning? I didn't go to the office yet.
I think we should talk about it since
I think so.
Senator D'Alessandro had some. I don't mind.
Okay. With me are Kate Malavy is head of the recruitment unit, our new recruitment unit, and Matt Mavrogeorge is the director of personnel. I'm sorry. The deputy director of personnel. Boy, Lori would just kill me, right? And I won't tell you which is which, but you might be able to tell. So a couple things. There's a document in front of you that Kate prepared, which is the numbers. The only change from the thing that we sent before is that the vacancy rate is 20.6, and I don't want to say that doesn't matter, but there's a chart in the back. I think it's page 4 that kind of shows what's happening. But what's going on is not that we're anticipating making immediate changes that will affect a rate. We're doing a lot of things. I remember, back in the day, people would ask about, we were talking about economic development or budgeting or something like that, and someone would say, what's the one thing we need to do? And I said, the one thing we need to do is to stop thinking there's one thing that we need to do, because there's no one thing that's going to make a difference on anything. And this is true of any major project you have. But on recruiting in the state, there's not one thing that we're not doing. If something happened and you saw immediate movement, it would be because, it turned out we forgot to flip a switch and now we're getting 8 times as many applicants. No, there are a lot of little things. Kate and her team of 3 people, and Matt is an integral part of this, are working on doing a lot of things. And if you look at the bullet points on major milestones, a lot of them you're going to look at and say, well, that doesn't sound like that big a thing. But everything is a big thing. Everything's a little thing. And all the little things start adding up. And I'm going to give one example that I'm directly familiar with from a few years ago. We have a lot of building service workers, which is a part-time position, doing cleaning. We have a lot of them based in the city of Concord, who are not native English speakers. A lot of them are from immigrant communities or new Americans or refugees or what have you. And it turned out that, the typical way of recruiting for a position like that doesn't really work. But we have a number of people inside those communities who we did flyers. And at some point, somebody did a flyer and had one of them translate it into Nepali, I'm going to say, but I might be wrong about that, and passed it out. It helped. We got 4 or 5 applicants that we didn't have. And it's the whole thing about word of mouth. One little thing that made a little tiny difference. It doesn't affect any data point or our numbers, but for the buildings that started getting clean they were getting cleaned, but the pressure on the building crew, that made a difference. So everything we're doing is designed to make a little bit of difference. And I think we're getting there. There is a data point in here that shows you what happens. I talked to you before about how there's a churn. So I think it's page 2. Net hires by pay period. We hire people, we terminate people. Termination just means they left. It doesn't mean they got fired, right? You retire, your position is terminated and all of that. And you see the net number is negative a lot of times. We've had positive, we've had negative. We actually had a really good pay period. We hire on Fridays. I think people know that. Everybody starts work on a Friday. Before I came to Fiscal, I actually wrote an email to my department about 5 new people who were starting this particular Friday and saying, make sure you wave and say hi to them as you walk by. And so everybody starts on a Friday. And this is what happened on the last 30-ish Fridays. And so we're going to be analyzing that data and kind of figuring out how that works. At the end of the day, one of the things we can do, recruitment is going to be a little bit like curling for us as a state. And there are national trajectories that are ongoing, and we can sweep to, you watch curling at the Olympics, right? You sweep and you kind of move it a little bit this way or a little bit this way. So we're trying to move it a little bit this way. Nobody going to flip a switch and we're going to go from 20%, and next month I'm going to come to you and go, hey, it was 20.4 last month. Now it's 8.5. Wow. We hired like 1,006 people. That's just never going to happen. So what we're hoping to do is to reverse that trend. That trend is only reversed by a lot of hard work by hiring managers. And it's to some extent hard work by the people to my right, but to a large extent, it's them helping other people get the work done. We're going to certify positions faster. You apply for the state job, you get certified. You get an answer faster. You get disposition faster, so you got the job, you didn't get the job. We encourage those people to apply for other jobs in the state system. And you can see here that some of the research work done, we found people who were interested in a state job and didn't get one, and then just sort of languishing out in the ethernet somewhere and moving that forward. And so that's the big picture on kind of where we're going. And I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. But we're finding a lot of things to work on that are making those small differences that we need to make.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Yes, Representative Emmerich.
With the pressures of inflation and et cetera, do you think we're going to see some retirees coming off the bench to come back into at least part-time employment?
Well, the short answer is I hope so. I mean, we have we have a number of people. This happens a lot lately. I mean, it happened in state service for a while, but you know, I have a guy who is, you know, he's past Social Security full-time age, and well, so I think a lot of people here know, you know, Mike Connor, who retired as deputy commissioner in 2017 and did everything and anything to do with property and public works and procurement, and was an institution in the state. So he retired. We got him to come back part-time, and I'm making sure to drop by and explain to him that, you know, if you wait till you're 70 to take Social Security, it goes up 8% a year those 3 years, just so you know. And to kind of put that off. We try to do a lot of that. We have, you know, I see a guy in the basement all the time who used to work for Weights and Measures in the Department of Agriculture, and there aren't. That's a thing where, you know, I hadn't even heard the term metrologist before I started looking at the state budget, and they have a new metrologist, and this guy is on board because there aren't a lot of them. And he's 25, 30 hours a week. And we talk, and when I see him in the basement, about retiree health a lot. And so we're doing everything we can with that. I think it's an effective solution. In some managerial positions, it requires you to rethink how you do things. There's an old-fashioned attitude that, you know, everybody I need to have full time. And you get used to, like, well, what I really need is another, you know, another Fred. And maybe what you need are 2 half Freds. And by the way, just for the record, 2 half Freds are actually cheaper. And so, and if it happens to be a Fred who actually knows what they're doing, you know, some of you may have met Joe Bouchard before. And I had a conversation with him on his last day, which didn't go anywhere. But I said, just so you know, once the summer's over and you're tired of the black flies biting you up in Maine, I'm sure we could work something out. Because I'd grab a guy who already knew what the heck he was doing, instead of bringing somebody in and having to train them and go, okay, so the budget, this is going to sound weird to you, and because he already knows all the weird stuff. And so it's easier. So that's a long way of saying, I hope so.
Are there any further questions? Yeah, thank you very much for this report. Oh, Representative Erf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could you just remind me what a non-classified position is and how many there are?
Yes, sort of. So the entire state workforce, almost without exception, is divided into classified and unclassified. And unclassified are largely the G&C appointments, but there are a couple other categories. The governor's staff is non-classified. They're salaried. They're not budgeted at anything. He could theoretically pay one guy $500,000 and somebody else $6. It's an argument I made when I worked there. It didn't go anywhere. But legislative employees are also non-classified. It means they're not part of any system and they're not part of a scale. They tend to be weird one-offs here and there. And in the executive branch, there's almost none of it except political appointees. Historically, it was meant to be used for people who are political appointees and serve at the whim of somebody else and fit certain categories under federal FLSA designations.
Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you. At one point, we approved money here for some employees at Hampstead Hospital. They were going to be non-classified too, which was, I think, the first time I ever heard that. Was that the only place aside from the governor's office and the legislature that we were going to have non-classified?
I think that's true, but I think there are a couple of onesies and twosies. You happen to know any others? Oh, first-year attorneys at Department of Justice before they're commissioned are technically non-classified in a different way. But by the way, the Hampstead Hospital people, I'm pretty sure my understanding of this is right, and Sherry can raise her hand on the back if I'm wrong, is that that's temporarily non-classified while they're in the process of going through JCEC approval to do the evaluation for where they should be in the unclassified system, I think.
But we're getting rid of them anyway.
We're what?
We're eliminating those when they turn into, because we did something Statutory.
When they switch, the old thing goes away. The
Yeah.
thing that's a temp goes away.
Okay, are there any further questions? All right, now can I finally announce the next meeting? Okay. Oh, yeah. Well, it's all there. Our next meeting will be on July 22nd at 10 a.m. And then we will skip August. And hopefully we won't have any emergencies so that we have to come in. But thank you all for coming today. And for those of you watching, I hope you have enjoyed it. And I will now ask for a motion to adjourn. Representative Leishman, seconded by Representative Emmerich. All those in favor? Opposed? I see Joe's opposed down there. Thank you all for your good work.